Hello, let us talk about the need for solder paste. So before going to the paste, the first thing we have to understand is PCB is nothing but a mechanical structure, right? Which basically holds the electronic components in place. So basically you solder the components on the PCB and PCB provides that base, right? Now on the PCB, when we design the routing, uh, we have pads associated with the components where the shape of the component is replicated on the PCB, which is basically called a footprint, and the pads of that footprint helps to solder the component to that PCB, right? To that footprint, right? So now the thing is, let us assume we have a bare PCB and we want to solder the part. You cannot directly place the part on its footprint and directly solder it. There must be some medium which helps to facilitate the joint between the footprint and the component. So that is where solder paste plays a role. So you can see in the above image here, to the pads of the PCB, which are basically the SMD parts. So solder paste is required for SMD components. It is required for through-hole components as well. That's a different topic. But basically, solder paste is predominantly used to facilitate the bonding of SMD components to the PCB. So you can see on the pads, the solder paste is applied. Now, this solder paste must be applied such that this is properly sitting on the pads. You can see the solder paste has not flowed out. It is exactly applied to the pad. So how does this happen is we have something called PCB stencil. So the PCB stencil is a structure which has apertures similar to the footprints on the PCB, and through the holes of that aperture we apply the solder paste such that it is applied exactly to the pads and sufficient amount is deposited. So that's where the PCB stencil plays a role. And then this paste, very important thing, right? It should provide a reliable connection of the component in the PCB, and the most important point is it must be lead free, not solder free, lead free. Okay, lead free is the very important requirement of the solder paste. So when you buy or when you are talking to your fab houses, ensure that you are using a lead free solder paste.